In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. We're very excited for this debate. We decided, as our last debate of the semester, we want to pick a nice, mild topic. But no, we are looking forward to this. It's definitely a relevant topic here in the United States, and it's one that's garnered a lot of interest. No doubt, if President Trump were here tonight, then he would have a few things to say, some bigly things to say. Perhaps he would complain about the crowd size, or the fake news outlets such as the Troubadour that misreported on tonight's proceedings. There's no disinformation. And when we get to the vote at the end of the evening, we may run a recount. But we'll see how this goes. As Mr. Denby was saying, this is a parliamentary debate, and that means a number of things. It means that use of notes when speaking is not allowed. It's about encouraging extemporaneous speaking, and it's about ideas and principles rather than memorizing specific studies or specific facts. Another thing, characteristic, as Mr. Denby was saying about parliamentary, is getting a good atmosphere going. So we really encourage you to make some noise for your side tonight. I think that's pretty much it in terms of basics of the rules. So thank you all once again for being here. I do want to, with regard to tonight's motion, read a couple of quotes from some relevant church documents, just so we can ground our discussion within that. Because what we like to do at Brighter Society is to address and debate topics that intelligent, faithful Catholics can legitimately disagree on. And so I'm going to do that for you now. And the first quotation comes from Pope St. John XXIII's encyclical Pacem in Terris, and this pertains to the issue of immigration. Among men's personal rights, we must include his right to enter a country in which he hopes to be able to provide more fittingly for himself and his dependents. It is therefore the duty of state officials to accept such immigrants and, so far as the good of their own dignity, rightly understood, permits, to further the aims of those who may wish to become members of a new society. Along with that, we'd like to quote from Pope St. John Paul II's letter to mark World Immigration Day in the year 2001. The Supreme Pontiff writes, "These rights are concretely employed in the concept of universal common good, which includes the family of peoples beyond every nationalistic origin. The right to emigrate must be considered in this context. The Church recognizes this right in every human person in its dual aspect of the possibility to leave one's country and the possibility to enter another country to look for better conditions of life. Certainly, the exercise of such a right is to be regulated, because practicing it indiscriminately may do harm and be detrimental to the common good of the community that receives the migrants." And so with that out of the way, I would like to get this debate started by inviting our first speaker for the evening, which is Professor Zorich.
Grandson of 4 illiterate immigrants, and here I am, a college professor. The issue we're faced with tonight is immigration consistent with Catholic social thought, or is Trump's policy consistent with Catholic social thought? I think our immigration policy has never been consistent with Catholic social thought, especially during the times in the 1920s when our immigration policy was to keep Catholics out of the country. The church asks us, and all Christian churches do this, they ask us to care for the poor. Immigration is the world's greatest anti-poverty program. If you look at the people in Haiti who have come out of poverty, 85% of them have come out of poverty because they have moved to the United States. Certainly, immigration is something that happens, and certainly it's a human right. I have been studying this subject for a long time. I can never really understand, having been the grandson of immigrants, how anyone could possibly be against immigrants simply because they have such a big impact on the economy and on the life in America. Last year, as the grandson of an immigrant, my wife and I paid $20,000 in income taxes and gave away another $15,000 to charities. That is the impact of the immigrants my grandparents were. So when you limit immigration, what happens is that you hurt the country. We have various big social programs in the United States. We have Social Security and Medicare. And our population is aging. We need more immigrants in order to pay into those programs, because the programs aren't going to be there for your generation unless we get those people in here to pay. We have job openings in the country. We have things that can be done. And most immigrants produce more than they consume. Something like half or close to half of the Fortune 500 companies have been started by either immigrants or the children of immigrants. Half of our population increase since 1965 has come from the growth of immigrants and their children. So there is nothing bad that I can think of to think about immigrants. They create jobs, they create a vitality in our system. Think about the foreign students that you have met. You probably haven't met too many of them because we don't have that many anymore since 9/11. We used to have close to 100 foreign students on our campus. Now I don't think we have near that number. But they bring a vitality to our lives. They bring jobs to the country. Most immigrants come here to work. They pay more taxes than they consume in social services. And so my point is that our policy about immigration has been immoral from the very beginning. I think there is only one word that can be used to describe our immigration policy, and that word is immoral. And the last time I went to Mass, which was this morning, the Catholic Church was still opposed to immorality.
Me dijeron que tenía que empezar esta presentación con algo en español, así que pues lo que voy a hacer. That was in Spanish for anyone who didn't notice. We either have a country or we don't. We either have borders or we don't. President Trump said that in 2015 after the second presidential debate on Sean Hannity. And you know what? He's right. Okay? If we don't have a sovereignty. We don't exist as the United States of America. America is the most generous nation in the world when it comes to immigration. 37 million people currently living in this country were born outside of it. Every year we bring in 1 million people from outside this country. 14% of those, for the record, are from Mexico, 7% China, and then down the line through most of Latin America and an increasingly number from Africa. These people contribute to this country's, and you know what? They have a right to be here. But what they don't have a right to, who doesn't have a right to be here is somebody who has no respect for our sovereignty and our laws. There is an estimated 11 million people in this country who immigrated illegally. What does that mean? They may have crossed the border in Mexico. They may have flown here and overstayed their visas. But one thing is clear about both of them, and they do not represent America because they do not accept our laws. There is a question that must be had. Where on the border do we let people in? Do we build the wall? E-Verify, end to chain migration, end to the visa lottery program. These are the pillars of Trump's immigration platform, and I challenge the opposition to prove that this is against the teachings of the church. Never has Trump called for an end to immigration. In fact, as recently as last month, he said, I want people to come here. Why? Because we have millions of jobs openings as our economy explodes, and we don't even have enough people to fill those jobs. We need people to come into this country. But we need them to represent our values. They accept our values, and without that, they will not follow our laws if they will not follow them to begin with. 4 things: a wall, E-Verify, end to visa lottery, and the last one is an increase in border protection. I find nothing wrong with that. Why on earth is safety a concern, a moral concern? It is a moral concern because it is necessary. We're not saying that people shouldn't come here. We're saying that we want to know who's coming here so that they can come here and contribute to our nation. Much is made of Trump's immigration platform, how he presents himself, and you know what? Nobody really pays attention to what he says, because everything is racism, xenophobia. There is none of that. He wants people to come here. He always has said that. He's always said that. But legally.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul. I'd like to invite the second speaker from the other side, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a statue in America. It's a very large statue. It currently, last I checked, sits in between the harbor of New York City. And on that statue there is a plaque. And on that plaque, it reads this: "Give me your tired, your poor. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed to me. I lift my golden lamp beside the door." Ladies and gentlemen, as a member of the affirmative side, I believe firmly that Mr. Donald Trump is in fact violating the own principles that are inscribed on the tallest statue in America. Perhaps that's what needs to be torn down instead of the wall if we're going to violate it. Let us be very clear. I will be having 3 distinct points against Mr. Trump. First, we will talk about legal immigration. Second, we will talk about illegal immigration. And finally, we will talk about the balance of justice and how Mr. Trump is violating this. First, let's talk about legal immigration. This involves specifically some points brought up by the opposition. E-Verify. Legal immigration is perhaps the biggest reason why today we have illegal immigration. So how do we solve the issue? Well, we, as the affirmative team, want to make very clear that what is important is letting these individuals in, because as my opposition agrees, they are going to drive America's economy. They are going to help the United States. They are going to, if they hold our values, make the United States better. And that is exactly why we need to have a better legal immigration system. And that is what Mr. Trump is not doing. We do not see an E-Verify system that is going to make it easier for the immigrant who makes $2 an hour to come into the United States and make $8 an hour so he can provide for his family. We are not going to see under E-Verify a system that allows immigrants willing to work hard at the raisin farms in California to come in. Because no, we need to have only the best of the best. We need to have only the college professors, only the Olympic athletes, only the ones that are going to bring in the big bucks. What about the little guy? Are we not a nation of immigrants? Are we not built upon the labor of the working class? Are we not built upon the blue-collar worker in the United States? If Mr. Donald Trump, and I will raise this high, truly is for the blue-collar worker, then why will that E-Verify system not let him in? That is a question that we all must answer. Let's take a look at my second point, illegal immigration. I could not agree more with the opposition. We need to protect our sovereignty. We are the United States of America, and I will be the first to defend this flag on my lapel. But does that mean that we will not let people in? No. We will let even more people in. Building a wall? No. What percentage, I've asked the opposition, of the illegal immigrants coming across are criminals? What percentage of the illegal immigrants coming across are rapists or murderers? What percentage, quite the contrary, are fathers bringing their children into the United States because they want a better life than they have? Does it really justify raising millions, billions of taxpayer dollars to create a wall that will keep out, yes, it'll keep out the bad guys, but is that really the best way to keep out the bad guys? No. Because with it, we keep out all of the good. And that, unfortunately, is what our friend Mr. Poth and Mrs. Eckelkamp are arguing for. I do not vouch for illegal immigration, but we need to make legal easier in order to bring the right people in. And that is something we have not seen under Mr. Donald Trump. Instead, we have seen him hush the lamp at the golden door that lets people into the United States. Instead, we have seen him violate the principles that stand upon the Statue of Liberty itself. Finally, let's talk about the balance of justice. We heard two wonderful quotes from our illustrious president, Mr. Clement Harold, from Pacem in Terris, and also, if I'm not mistaken, an address given by John Paul II on undocumented immigrants. Both of those clearly stated that we need a balance of popular sovereignty, of the sovereignty of a nation, and the balance of letting individuals in. I would make the argument that Mr. Trump, by failing to address sufficiently legal immigration and thereby increasing illegal immigration, has violated both principles. And for the sake of the protection not only of our nation, but of the people outside of our nation who will make it better, I firmly urge that you side with myself and Professor Zork that the affirmative side is the correct one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. I'd now like to invite the second speaker from the opposing side.
Border security? illegal immigrants. 10,000 to 30,000 women and young girls are subjected to sex trafficking over the United States and Mexican border. And those are the only ones that we even know about. It is an undisputable fact that criminal organizations such as drug cartels and human sex trafficking exploit women and children. They use and exploit loopholes in our American immigration policies to promote their evil enterprises. If we turn a blind eye to border security, we turn a blind eye to the defense of human dignity. Now, we have to ask the question, who are these people coming across the United States border illegally? Are they refugees fleeing violent conflict? Are they drug cartels who foment the opioid crisis? Are they human sex traffickers who exploit women and young girls for profit and pleasure? Or are they Americans in their hearts? This is something we must find out, and we can only do it through border security. St. John Paul II, in his letter and speech titled Undocumented Migrants, it was given in 1996 on the Day of World Immigration. And I quote, "Illegal immigration should be prevented." Now, he goes on to say that the reasons it should be prevented is because it promotes this culture of taking advantage of people who are in a vulnerable situation, as I'm sure you can all understand and realize. He realized that illegal immigration was a cesspool of drug cartels and human sex traffickers. He knew this, and that's why in his speech on the World Day of Migration, he said illegal immigration should be prevented. Can we as a nation take this affront to our sovereignty? Or do we defend our God-given right to protect our borders?
Thank you very much, Ms. Egglegan. We're now going to open up to the open floor period of this debate. So at this point, anybody is allowed to get up and speak. Just a quick reminder of how that's going to work. If you would like to give a speech, you just stand up. If you're in the back, then maybe just raise your hand as well. And upon being recognized by myself, you come to the center of the room, receive the microphone. Again, without using notes, you can speak for up to 5 minutes. When you have only 1 minute remaining, then I'll hit the gavel and remind you of that. And then at the conclusion of your speech, we invite you to take a question or two from the audience. So if anybody would like to speak, you can stand now.
Do I take a mic or?
Yes.
Testing. All right, cool. Professor, you said you had your grandparents move to this country with here, I presume from Western Europe. Well, my grandparents, they moved to this country too, from Ireland in the 1960s. I don't know if you guys can tell how ridiculously Irish I look, but...
Here, here!
My pops, the Prunty family built an empire. My Uncle Mike is the manager of the Empire State Building. My pops, he was the manager of 1185 Park Avenue, the residential building, until he retired. But they moved here legally, by legal means. And I don't mean to bash on anyone who is fleeing to this country as a refugee. There are people who are fleeing much worse things than we could ever deem to propagate against them. But when you see things on the news, when you see things on TV, you see all of these women and children with tear gas, their eyes bleeding up and red. They never show you what those people do to our border security, what they do to our personnel. They never show you the people bleeding from the eyes from rocks that have been bounced off of their skulls. So at the end of the day, these people are defended by a group of people who would propagate anything, who would tear down this democracy if they could preside over the ashes. Then what do you know? As Catholics, we must protect the weak. But I don't think the modern Democratic Party aims to do that. I think that they're just trying to look like they are. And I could be wrong about that. I could be. But if you look at what we have nowadays, if you look at Hillary Clinton, if you look at the Me Too movement, it's always something that starts off with a good idea and then travels down a very long and desolate path into darkness. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Do we have questions for the speaker?
So what Catholic social teaching actually supports your position?
It's a good question. It's a good question. You want to know what Catholic doctrine protects any of this? It's a good question, by all means. But when you see people who are getting attacked by illegal immigrants, I should ask you, Jew or Gentile, black or white, would anyone stand for that kind of violence to grab and take what you want? If I were to smite my neighbor and then demand he let me into his house, is that something that you would stand for, sir? Let me know.
What Catholic social teaching supports?
I'd like to remind the speaker that dialogue between audience members is prohibited. So if you could answer the question and then we'll go.
That sounds fun. Now, I'll admit, I'm not sure if any of you guys can tell, but I went to a public school in Southern California. I'm not the best Catholic. I'm not. However, I think it's very easy to see. I don't think that you need a book. I don't think that you need any sort of doctrine to tell you what is right and what is wrong. I think it's something that you can tell. I think that anyone who has a soul can tell that murder is wrong. I think that anyone who can see with their own two eyes can tell that rape is wrong. And yes, you need doctrines to point you in that direction, but I think that anyone with a brain can tell that. Now, am I wrong in that regard, Mr. Speaker? I think not. That is my conclusion.
The floor is open for anyone else who would like to speak. I recognize the man in the back.
I was born in Miami, Florida, the son of two immigrants, one legal and one illegal. Both were escaping the civil war in Nicaragua. The difference between them two is that my mother had money, and she managed to do it legally. My father had no money at all, and had to cross for 3 years all of Central America and Mexico, and finally cross over the border illegally. The problem with Trump's immigration plan is that, as stated by Alex McKenna, it does not help those that cannot afford to immigrate legally. Just to take on a point given by turning back to Michael Delaney, he asked what Catholic principle prevents that opposition. And what I want to say is that God calls us to be poor. He calls us to give up our riches.
Hey.
And if living